Hello, Steve White, TrekBoy89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, the rumours about Kurtzman being out of Star Trek and the movement towards the Paramount Skydance merger, whatever you want to call it, seem to be becoming a bit more confident. Now, before I get into that, feel free to like, share, maybe go to my channel and actually look for videos, because they're certainly not going to put any on your feed. And maybe even ding a little bell. But yeah, so there's not many people talking about what's happening with Star Trek at the moment. The Star Trek guy seems to be the only person besides me doing regular videos about what's happening with Star Trek. And he does have his sources apparently, and they do seem to be more confident now in what's happening. So he did a whole new video with no new information, no new rumours, but he was just sort of saying, well, things seem to be more certain now. He's heard that Paramount has definitely gone through all the steps and all the issues with ending the contract with Kurtzman, and that they are thinking of going forward, that they're planning to do a couple of movies to sort of reboot Star Trek and separate Star Trek from the Kurtzman era and make a new era and do a movie that's going to lead into a series. So they'll probably maybe have, I'm guessing they'll have some sort of movie trilogy sort of with one crew, and they'll establish other star bases or starships in that universe, and then we'll just focus on one of them for a series. I'm guessing that would be the smart way to do it, which is what I thought they were going to do in 2009. I thought they'd either do a TV version of that show with different actors, or they'd just do maybe 5 years after, just set it in a different time period, or before maybe Pike's era, something like that. I thought, and it'd sort of be the same universe. But they didn't do that. Instead, they created a third universe and did the Discovery thing, and that was a whole nightmare. But so that's the thought that they're basically going to do. They're going to just set up a new universe. And with Kurtzman, the only hope he has of staying involved with Star Trek is if they're happy with Strange New Worlds, and if the new Starfleet Academy show actually does well, they might allow him to continue on those two shows under a new contract just specifically for those shows. And he won't have control of Star Trek as a whole anymore. He'll just be like one of the producers working on a Star Trek show. He won't be running the show. And Paramount will be back in control. And that would be an improvement. That would be some hope that if we could just get Paramount to bring Star Trek back in-house and to have someone looking over the whole thing that isn't like Kurtzman. But the fear with that is they could get someone worse who knows even less about Star Trek. But I don't think they'd make that mistake again. I think they sort of took a chance back in 2007 or whatever and thought, let's just see if we can make Star Trek for the masses. Let's just try and do a new hip, version for the kids, and see if we can make Star Wars money or Marvel money. And it didn't work because Star Trek had a set audience that had, a lot of dedicated fans, but not as many as the general, audience. But the kind of fans who'd see the film 5-10 times, so it kind of balances out. So yeah, but this film really didn't make, the JJ film didn't make any more money than Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 1, maybe 5 million more. So basic, but less seats, less people actually saw the film, and they were less profitable because they cost more than the old Star Trek films. So it didn't work with films. TV series, they created a third universe, went in another direction. It was just awful because Kurtzman didn't know Star Trek, didn't like Star Trek, and thought Star Trek was dead, and the only way to revive it was to try and just use the IP and make other shows from other genres with the Star Trek IP, and maybe one of them would catch on. They just didn't know what they were doing. They were just hoping. So that's where we're at, and it just seems like all the roadblocks that were put up for Paramount to stop the merger going through, they were put up by Trump, allegedly, while he was trying to end this court case and get a payout from CBS. Now they paid up and they greased those wheels and they gave him the bribe he was basically, demanding. Now all these things they had to do apparently that were delaying the process don't need to be done. They suddenly just don't need to be done anymore now that Trump's got his money and there's no court case anymore, no payout that he's hoping for. So it does look like things are moving ahead, and it looks like they are going to be ending Kurtzman's contract and hopefully doing some new Star Trek content. And they're talking about, from what I hear from Sci-Fi Guy and a few other people, that they're talking about simplifying Star Trek, making it just one universe again, maybe one or two eras, but one universe, one or two eras, and just setting things up to separate it from that last, lot of shows, and start to do some new shows later on. And it'd be great because Star Trek really isn't being pushed by Paramount Plus anymore. It's not the draw card that they thought it was going to be, because even though the old shows are getting a lot of views, the new shows weren't. They were costing a lot of money. So it's spending a lot of money on new Star Trek and not getting much back for it. They could have just kept the original shows on and probably did as well, and without all that expenditure of hundreds of millions of dollars for these new shows, which was so wasted, because imagine what they could have done if they spent that money on actual Star Trek shows. It would have been amazing. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the situation. It just sounds like all the people who were talking before are more confident about what's going to happen. So there's no new rumours. It's just people seem to be more sure of what's happening, and hopefully it works.